Peace, family. How y'all doing? Happy Pan African Thursday. Y'all know who it is. It's Dr. Picard K. Lumumba of LumumbaSpeaks.com. Back once again in conjunction with Bequaline Network, the Pan African social media extraordinaire, in the home of African centered news and information. Have a great show coming up for you all this evening. But before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Make sure you hit the notification bell as well. You're watching once again LumumbaSpeaks.com in conjunction with Beacon Network, the Pan African social media extraordinaire, in the home of African centered news and information. We have a great show, I believe, this evening where we're going to be discussing why we must expose grifters like Cheyenne Bryant. As you can see, I stated Cheyenne Bryant, not Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. And there's a reason for that. Many of you may be aware of the now infamous Breakfast Club interview in which many people argue, stumbled or fumbled the questions regarding the legitimacy of her claims to be a doctor. Many people took extreme umbrage with her answers, right? Arguing that the university closed. As a result, she did not have access to the records. We know that it's not true. Even if a university does close, you can simply go to Parchment, which is a third party site, to gain access to your transcripts, so on and so forth. Also, if anyone who is familiar with the educational process, most institutions will provide you with a free copy of your transcripts when you graduate. And then thenceforth, you will be required to what? Pay for your transcripts, but you typically receive a complimentary uh, a complimentary record of your transcripts when you initially, of course, finish at an institution. There's some issues that I think we need to address in terms of why we need to expose grifters. Not just Cheyenne Bryant. Many people may be aware that when she first gained notoriety, we reached out to her, sent the email request to interview, did not hear back, particularly because the individual shared with me, and I did some background, that she claimed to have I believe, a bachelor's degree in Pan African Studies. We know Black Studies, Pan African Studies, African American Studies. Uh, there are a number of names that are used for, of course, the academic discipline, typically the same. There may be some nuances depending on the institution that you attend. But this is an issue that I think we definitely need to discuss, and I'm really going to expose some of the red flags regarding if someone is a grifter, right? So get ready for that, family. But once again, the link is in the description. We'll put the link in the chat momentarily. You're watching LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. Once again, in conjunction with Beacon Network, the Pan African social media extraordinaire, in the home of African centered news and information. Before we get into the conversation, family, just want to go over our ground rules. As many of you are aware, we believe in diversity of thought. We believe that how you grow, not only intellectually, but even as a person, is to be in a space where there's an equal exchange of ideas. So, irrespective if you're on the left, you're on the right, or you're right down the middle, this is a place where you could come and engage in good faith. Number two, we believe in facts over feelings. So, if someone makes a claim you disagree with, attack the argument, not the person. No ad hominems, no red herrings, of course, or straw mans. And then number three, no epithets of any kind. This is a space of course, empowerment, right? We believe in the three N's of Black power: self-respect, self-defense, and of course, self-determination. So we don't allow epithets of any kind. And then last but not least, no fundamentally false statements, right? We believe wholeheartedly that you can have an opinion. Don't have a problem with that. We actually support that. But if you were to make a claim that was adverse to facts, of course, I'm going to come in like the brother from the Apollo. And of course, we're going to have to pull the plug and at least address the issue. And many people say, well, why is that needed and necessary? As many of you are aware, I am a scholar and I am responsible for, of course, the information I put out on my platform. And so it hurts my credibility as a scholar if I am on a platform. I have a platform and I allow people to come on and make claims that are adverse to facts, conjecture, innuendo, speculation, uh, and then more importantly, but it hurts my credibility. And so, last but not least, family, our mission is needed to exonerate or vilify, but to challenge conventional wisdom and re-examine what has been previously accepted as fact. So, once again, family, I'm going to put the link in the description in the chat. The link is already in the description, and we're going to get the conversation started. So, I think number one, there's a couple things that we have to look at. Let's see here, Shaka One Love, brother. You are 100% correct. We must expose to puppets and traders. Times are crucial and puppets must go. on Black Power Pan-African Unity. Absolutely appreciate that. And make sure you're a blessing to the show, family. Cash App, Lumumba Speaks, Venmo, B Lumumba, then of course via Super Chat as well. So there's a couple issues here. One, it hurts the credibility of Black people. I think it's a slap in the face to members of our community who did their due diligence, right? Went through years of schooling and education, racked up an innumerable amount of student loans, but have chosen to misrepresent themselves as doctors, right? I think it's a smack in the face to everyone who actually did the work. What we tend to find here, and I'm going to read an article from a sister on Substack that really speaks to this, is in our community, unfortunately, there's a rampant level of anti-intellectualism. Brother Dwayne, who we all know has been the resident historian here at Lumumba Speaks and Big Line Network, has talked about that ad nauseum when he's been on the platform, that not only just in the Black community, but in America in general, there's a push of anti-intellectualism. So anyone who's charismatic, has to gift the gab, who's easy on the eyes, is able to get away bloviating, speculating, and not providing actual facts. And so what we're going to get into, I think there's a couple of issues that really, I think, exposes someone who's a grifter or a pseudo scholar, etc. If the individual seems to only have conversations with individuals who are unable to challenge them intellectually, we have a problem here, right? Butter B. Quilline, we had a colloquy probably about last year. He talked about Dr. Umar Johnson, who actually is a doctor. He actually did go to school and obtain the degrees that he claims to have. I actually read his dissertation. Wasn't bad, to be quite honest with you. I actually was impressed. I'm like, okay, he got some skills. He knows what he's doing. But B. Quilline mentioned when he read Dr. Thomas J. Curry's book, Man Not, he realized that many of Dr. Umar Johnson's analysis of issues in the Black community, particularly in terms of issues around Black boyhood and manhood, were extremely surface level in nature. So, but that's what happens when you engage real scholarship. You realize that, right? Some of the claims that Cheyenne Bryant made on the Breakfast Club, where she claimed that, well, you only need a licensure if you want to build insurance. Completely false. I have a PhD. I'm not in the field of psychotherapy, but that's just completely false. You have a licensure to protect the consumer, right? Credit, licensure, credentials, state boards, tests to protect the consumer, the patient, right? There's a code of ethics you have to follow. One of the things that we tend to find with a lot of grifters, right? If you go on her site now, I think it states lifestyle coach, right? Rather than the actual psychotherapist or therapist or so on and so forth. Sister Monica Thomas, who's been on the show a number of times, she's an actual licensed, trained therapist, right? She has her own practice, right? Monica Thomas Consulting. So this is an issue because if harm is done to you in the therapeutic process, and we put air quotes on therapeutic, you have no one to go to for redress, right? That's one issue. The other issue is, I think part of it, she was able to get away with this because she weaponized the beauty. To be honest, she's extremely easy on the eyes. I think a lot of people focus on how she looked, the outfits that she wore, she was a bit curvaceous, etc. We understand this, rather than the lack of substance in what she actually had to say, right? Let's be honest here. And so what we find is that these are individuals who know that there are people in our community who are seeking information from non-traditional sources. They may not have the intellectual acumen or the time, intellectual acumen, or capacity or ability to go to college, right? To grace the halls of academia, to sit in the classroom and receive that type of information or knowledge. So guess what? They're able to go to YouTube, they're able to go to TikTok, etc., etc. And you have individuals who are promoting themselves as something that they are not, as a way really to be a stopgap between people who aren't able to make it into higher education for whatever the reason may be. Some people may be working 2 or 3 jobs, and it's not plausible for them to be able to do so. This is what we're finding here. Extremely problematic, right? Harm, and I'm someone who's gone to therapy before. I'm someone who is friends with people who are therapists. This is extremely harmful to the community. We find this even with Tariq Nasheed, right? Charismatic, well-spoken, tall brother. Some reports state he's 6'5", right? So he has this commanding presence. He starts off as extremely professional. Same with Umar. Kate started off. I remember meeting Umar Johnson. First time I met him was in 2011 in Cincinnati at Marcus Garvey Day celebration. Um, we're at the celebration, maybe no, not 2011. I think 2013. When he first came out, he was extremely professional. He has a following. He's making that munyan. Before you know it, the ratchet comes out. Same with Tariq Nasheed. But as part of the grift is we talk about the Hidden Colors DVDs. If you aren't someone who's a student of history, if you don't have a working knowledge of world history and African history, you will view those DVDs and think, oh my gosh, this is absolutely phenomenal. This is great information. If you have a working knowledge, you know that the claims that he's making in the DVDs are ahistorical, right? I was an undergraduate at the time, majoring in African American studies, and I knew that the information that was being disseminated on the DVDs was ahistorical and adverse to facts, right? So what these individuals are able to do is have conversations with individuals who aren't in the know, right? And they're able to use that in a manner to benefit themselves, particularly for pecuniary gain. So something to consider. Extremely, extremely problematic. I'm going to read this article that's on Substack. So we're going to give a shout out to the sister. If you are on Substack family, her page is The Way She Came. So I'm going to share my screen and actually read this. I know Dr. T. Hassan Johnson did the same earlier today. And so I said, I have to find this article. And so we're going to read it. It's titled, Why the Black Community Must Stop Elevating Charismatic Frauds Over Qualified Professionals. The Grift We Tolerate. So, as a Black woman in a mental health nurse, I spend my days working alongside bona fide doctors, therapists, and clinicians who have put in the grueling hours, completed the rigorous schooling, and earned the legitimate credentials required to care for of our people. We work tirelessly to overcome the deep-seated stigma and historical distrust the Black community rightfully holds toward the medical and psychiatric establishments. Agree, there's a long history there, and there are even contemporary issues we find in terms of why we view the medical industry the way we do. Yet, time and time again, I watch our community bypass these dedicated, qualified professionals to crown the next fast-talking, good-looking grifter who tells us exactly what we want to hear. First, it was Umar Johnson. He paraded around with his questionable credentials, collecting millions of dollars for an imaginary school for Black boys that never materialized. He sold a dream, wrapped in pro-Black rhetoric, and many bought it hook, line, and sinker, ignoring the glaring lack of accountability and tangible results. Now we are witnessing the dizzying spectacle of Cheyenne Bryant. When pressed about her doctorate degree and the missing dissertation, her excuse that her alma mater, Argosy University, closed down and she no longer has access to her paperwork. Let us be clear, that is a lie. When a university closes, transcripts and academic records do not simply vanish into the ether. That information is transferred to the Department of Education or managed by entities like the National Student Clearinghouse. If she earned a degree, the proof exists. Furthermore, where is her prominently displayed degree? A standard requirement for practicing professionals. The silence on that question is deafening. The reality is that because she looks good and speaks with rapid-fire confidence, too many in the Black community are willing to accept her nonsense. This is not just about one woman's questionable background. It is a glaring symptom of the anti-intellectualism running rampant through our community. We are too easily swayed by aesthetics and charisma, prioritizing the performance of expertise over actual verifiable knowledge. I say Black power to that. This trend is a profound slap in the face of every Black practitioner who has done the work. We sit in classrooms for years, accumulate massive student debt. I agree. Complete thousands of clinical hours, and navigate systemic barriers just to earn the right to sit across from our patients and offer them safe, evidence-based care. They are rightfully worked for the right to be called doctor, to be that an MD or PhD. That title is not a declaration or a social media handle. It is a combination of years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, I can attest, failed exams retaken, and a commitment to a standard of care that protects human lives. To see our community elevate individuals who bypass this necessary rigor is disheartening and dangerous. The Black practitioners who have fought to build trust in our communities, that have every historical reason to be suspicious, deserve better than to have their sacrifice undermined by people playing dress up and credentials they cannot prove they earned. Let me be clear about something else. A huckster knows exactly what calling themselves a doctor does. It immediately gives them a stamp of approval by the very folks they are targeting. It signals authority. It signals trustworthiness. It signals that you should lower your guard and open your wallet. The title is weaponized, and our community, hungry for representation and affirmation, is particularly vulnerable to it. When we see one who looks like us, speaks our language, and carries that title, we want to believe. The grifter counts on that. They are not confused about what they are doing. They are deliberate. And let us not pretend this is a minor issue. When unqualified people position themselves as mental health experts in a community that already struggles to access quality care, real harm follows. Someone in crisis may turn to a grifter instead of a licensed professional. Someone in pain may receive advice rooted in nothing but performance and profit. We're not talking about hurt feelings. We're talking about lives. One thing the Black community seems to love is a fast-talking, good-looking grifter. The packaging is polished, the rhetoric is affirming, and the receipts are nowhere to be found. We must ask ourselves why we find it easier to defend the unverified than to protect the verified. We cannot want, expect, and demand better treatment from the world while overlooking the rot in our own backyard. We cannot demand systemic accountability while giving a pass to those who exploit our vulnerabilities for their own gain. As Black women, especially, we must invest in our own education, our careers, and our critical thinking. We must abandon the expectation that loyalty to community means silence about community failures. Demanding credentials is not an act of betrayal, it's an act of love. It's the bare minimum we owe ourselves and each other. Stop rewarding the grift, demand the receipts, protect our people by holding everyone, including our own, to the standard we claim to deserve. We deserve better than snake oil salesmen and fake experts. It's time we start acting like it. So, family, if you are on Substack, make sure you follow this sister the way she came, right? Brilliant article. I'm going to follow her. But this is a real issue, in my opinion. So once again, family, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. If you're on Twitter, you could tap in on YouTube at Lumumba Speaks if you want to be part of the conversation. But this is a major issue. I can recall vividly when Umar Johnson, and I'm going to speak to this sister's article because I think it was absolutely brilliant. I'm going to reach out to her, find the email contact, and try to interview her on the platform as well. I recall when Dr. Umar Johnson wrote his book, published his book, The Psychoacademic Holocaust, America's War Against Black Boys. If I'm misfudging on the title of the book, please forgive me. Charges to my head, not my heart. And a brother purchased the book, and he told me there were no citations in the book whatsoever. I said, well, that's extremely problematic, right? Because this is probably anti-intellectualism, right? If you're going to provide a service for the Black community, you need to make, Mr. Sandman, I see you. I'll bring you in momentarily. You want to make sure that service is of value, right? And the brother said, "No, that's just white people stuff." I said, "No, it's not." Right? There should be an expectation that you're providing literature, scholarly literature to the community to uplift the community, to better the community, and inform the community about issues that our children are facing in school. It is of the best quality. That speaks to what the sister was talking about in her article, right? Extremely problematic. Another issue, if this person is marketing themselves as an expert, well, very quickly before I go down that road, we have to call out the intellectually lazy podcasts and TV shows, The Breakfast Club, Joe Budden's podcast, Cam Newton's. The individuals who are doing the interviews lack the capacity to ask real questions, to actually challenge them intellectually. I mentioned this before, when Umar Johnson gave his anti-Black misandric soliloquy on a podcast talking about Black men were the reason why Black women behave the way they behave. And I argued, and all the claims Umar Johnson made were 100% ahistorical. There wasn't one claim he made that was factual. And I say that, but he's doing that purposely. He's making sure that he's in a space where the individuals who are interviewing him lack the capacity and ability to actually challenge what he's saying. I have Dr. Umar Johnson's number. We used to converse on a regular basis. When I got married, I sent him what? A picture of the wedding. He said, congratulations, King. Right? But when I asked him, let's interview, let's have a colloquy, let's talk about these things that you're saying out here in the public, I don't hear back from him. This is something that's done on a regular basis. There are a number of individuals in the community who have public platforms, who have made claims to our community that are adverse to facts. I have personally sent them emails, exchanged with them. Let's have a conversation. I have to challenge the things you're saying because they're not true. And they do not, of course, respond in kind. Brother LMA, who dribbles down the VA, he stated ad nauseum, maybe if you send an email and it has poor grammar and there are some misspelled words and you don't mention the fact that you are a doctor with actual PhD, maybe then, right, they will respond. Still hasn't happened. But this is the problem. This is a major problem because what we're having taking place is instead of individuals going and finding information that will help them, they providing misinformation that misleads them or puts them oftentimes in a worse situation than they began, right? I remember correctly, Malcolm X or Haj Malik El-Shabazz stated that if you're not on the right road, there's no way you can get to a proper destination, right? So oftentimes we're actually making the problems even worse. Mr. Sandman, 215 in the building, Illadale. What's the word, brother?
Hey, what's the word? Happy Pan-African Thursday, Dr. Lumumba, live from the 215.
to the 937, yeah. Absolutely. So what are your thoughts on this situation?
I love science.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I love science.
You love science. Okay, very good.
And the reason why I love science is because, science has to be backed up with receipts.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the terms that you love to use is substantiate claims.
Right, yeah. You have to substantiate.
And, the article was passionate and rousing and interesting. But however, I'd have to question some of the claims that the doctor brought up in her article as well that I feel that she hadn't properly substantiated. And even though I don't have the accolades that she has, I think I reserve the right to ask her to substantiate them.
Yeah, I mean it's on the public. It's for the public to review. So of course you could push back. What issues do you have with the article?
Okay, so she claims that Black people are what was the exact words that we fall victim to grifters who look good.
Yes.
What were her exact words? Do you recall her exact words on that?
Yes. Let me go back and review. She states that. Let's be clear about something. Exactly what they're doing. One thing the Black community seems to love is a fast-talking, good-looking grifter. The packaging is polished, the rhetoric is affirming, and the receipts are nowhere to be found. We must ask ourselves why we find it easier to defend the unverified than to protect the verified. We cannot, expect and demand better treatment from the world while overlooking the rot in our own backyard. We cannot demand systemic accountability while giving pass to those who exploit our vulnerabilities for their own gain.
Okay, yeah, she says, her exact words, if we're going to use semantics, her exact words is it seems that Black people are easy to be grifted by good-looking fast talkers.
Yeah.
Did she cite any studies? Has she done any studies that substantiate that claim?
Let me. So one, this is a blog post. So in a blog post, you don't typically provide citations. The second issue is, I would argue, we don't need any a verified study there, because this is something that is observable reality. As you know, and I know, many of us grow up in a Black religious community, and we know that typically, if you grow up in a church, the pastor is seen as a Teflon Don. He can't be touched, no matter what he says. And I see you, LMA. I'm gonna bring you in momentarily. No matter what he says or does, no matter how nonsensical the claims he makes. We know this because I just had experience in Florida. I wrote an article about it. The individual, people will not treat him as if he is a person of ill repute, right? So we know from observable reality that this is an issue in the Black community. If a person is charismatic, they carry a title, they're well spoken, well groomed, well dressed, people will listen to what they have to say. And oftentimes in the community, and I can say this because I'm out here in these streets, as they say, right? We tend to find that, unfortunately, in our community, because of the anti-intellectualism and oftentimes the harm that is done educationally, in our community, we view credentials as something that is rooted in whiteness. I would avoid that. That's not the case, right? But we tend to find that. And so you ain't have no credentials, that's just some white people stuff. And then the person's coming out here making claims that are just nonsensical, then you find yourself in a precarious situation, right? So these are some of the issues. But I just want to say that in a blog piece, you typically do not provide citations, right? Even when I write on Medium, I don't put in citations because that's not something that you're supposed to do on Medium. But I would argue, and I think quite sure you can say this as well as an African American, in our community, it is an observable reality that tends to take place. LMA, you can turn your camera off. I see you in queue. This is an observable reality.
Yeah, I can observe it and have an opinion of it. Reality can be subjective. My reality is the way that I see my reality, but it's subjective. What proof do we have, or how can it be substantiated in any coherent way that Black people are more susceptible to grifters than any other group?
Well, she never claimed that we were more susceptible. She simply said that this is an issue in our community, but she never claimed that we were more susceptible. And I will give an example because you are someone who's subscribed to my channel and you're a frequent contributor. We saw this with Brother 19 Keys. If you will recall, close to this time last year, I did a live on 19 Keys interviewing the Breakfast Club. 19 Keys had about a 90-minute conversation with the staff, with the cast of the Breakfast Club. In all of his claims, I dare say, we could literally say in the 90 percentile, were ahistorical and adverse to facts, right? But the people in the comments, and I think Brother Bawana, he mentioned what was really off-putting was in the comments, people were talking about how brilliant this man was, even though he had no idea what he was talking about. And one of the things that was readily that was a red flag for me was he came on the show stating we were fighting for Black power, and then we started focusing on cultural issues, and then he stated that Black studies as an academic discipline was created by the CIA. Now, there's two things wrong with that. One, the claim he made is ahistorical. Three things. Two, he's of course engaging in Black erasure because he's actually rendering invisible the struggle that Black people had organically to fight for the creation of Black studies. Right? He's rendering invisible the individuals who were fired from their jobs, who were assaulted by police, who were kicked out of school, etc. And this all started at San Francisco State College, which is now San Francisco State University, which is on the southwest side of the city of San Francisco. I know because I've been to the campus. The third issue is any issues that are subversive to the Black community from a government standpoint, domestically, is ran by the FBI. The CIA deals with issues abroad, not domestic. So his entire claim was nonsensical. But once again, you have to be in the know to realize this man doesn't know what he's talking about. Another example, he claimed that one of the things that got our eyes off the prize, right? Remember the song from the Civil Rights Movement? We got the one thing we did right was the day we chose to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize. He says we lost, we fumbled the momentum we had. We started focusing on trying to connect with Black people in Ghana. This is a verbatim quote. However, 20 minutes later, during his Breakfast Club interview, he states, and I quote, well, one of our weaknesses is we don't have any international allies. So the guy was simply bloviating. But if you aren't knowledgeable of this particular issue, you will come away like, golly, this guy is brilliant.
Okay, so I don't mean to be contradictory, Dr. Lumumba,
That's
but
quite all right.
can you substantiate the claim that the Black African American Studies was not
Yes, I
created by
can.
the CEA?
And
And
I would hold on. I can tell you why, because my dissertation focused on the creation of Black studies, because the creation of Black studies led to the creation of area studies. When we're talking about women's studies, Chicano studies, Asian studies, etc., it also led to the creation of Black cultural centers, and then of course, subsequently, other identity centers in higher education. The third issue is I've actually had a chance because I had funding to go and view our archives in terms of the from the Freedom of Information Act, where we were able to look at COINTELPRO. And what we found was that um, there were Black organizations and Black movements on campus that were being infiltrated, but they were being infiltrated to actually what destroy these Black movements, not support them. For example, a great example, and I have once some documentation to substantiate this, is at Wright State University, my undergraduate institution, during the 60s and 70s, there was an organization that was founded by Black students called CABU, Coalition for the Advancement of Black Unity. That organization was infiltrated by an FBI agent who was a provocateur and was trying to get individuals in their organization to actually set a bomb on campus.
so are you claiming that African American studies cannot be tied down to one individual or one organization that started it?
Well, what we know is that Black studies or African American studies, whatever term you want to use, began at San Francisco State University. This is a reality. Nathan Harrell was the first department chair. He was a University of Chicago trained sociologist. They started this, and this is due to student demands. There was actually a nearly a 160-day strike at Central State University, where the Black students, they changed their name from the Negro Student Union to the Black Student Union, and they actually built an alliance with the other student organization on campus and called it the Third World Movement. And they had a like I said, 160-day strike. And so they put a lot of pressure on the university to acquiesce to the demand of creating the Black Studies discipline. Because what the university wanted to do was simply make Black Studies a expenditure of another discipline, and they said no, we're not going for that, right? So I could say that because I know the history. Part of when you go into graduate school, you actually have to read the literature and know the history. The claim the man made is 100% false. And once again, the individual in the Breakfast Club, and I'm going to say this because they're culpable for this. They lack the capacity to even question what people say because they don't know anything themselves. They need at the very least have some type of researcher who preps when someone comes on an interview. I can recall vividly there was a time where Dr. Umar Johnson was on the show. And I'm not pivoting, I'm using this as another example. Dr. Umar Johnson, Umar Ifantunde, came on the show and claimed that Buddha means black face. And I remember DJ Envy said, well, we're not going to question you. You could do that later. We're not going to try to fact check you. That's a problem when you allow people to come on a platform that is a national platform, I argue, is even international, because I know some people in the UK who watch it, and allow people to bloviate and make claims that are adverse to facts and engage in promoting misinformation. This doesn't help our community in any way, shape, or form, right? It could be entertainment, but also can be edutainment, not misentertainment. This is a problem.
Yes. One last question. How do I gain access to your dissertation, Dr. Lumumba? Is
Yeah,
this something that I have to purchase?
no, you could Google my name, put in dissertation, and it will come up. As a matter of fact, I would do that right now. So let's go here. I'm going to do this right in front of you. Okay, dissertation. All right. We're going to go here. I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second, family. Share screen. Give me 1 second, brother LMA. So go to share screen. And so one, it has my master's thesis here right away. And then boom, you go right down here. You see Bakari Lumumba put in dissertation. That's my master's thesis. And then right here underneath the second bullet point, we find my dissertation, right? For free, you could download it. It won't cost you any money. You could download it right here on Intersectional Ground, examining the efficacy of Black culture centers in the age of intersectionality. It's 248 pages. It's that simple. It's that
Okay,
simple.
yeah, I would love to. I would love to read it before you get too famous, because anytime you try to get your hands on Dr. Martin Luther King's dissertation, they want to charge you all kinds of fees just to get a glimpse at it.
Oh, okay,
And they
yeah.
even,
I do know
and
about
I'm
that.
even, and I even hear like all kinds of detractors claiming that there was plagiarism in Dr. Martin Luther King's
Dissertation.
dissertation as well. But I would like to.
There
I've only like read
was,
bits
but
and pieces of it.
but they did not rescind his degree. They did not rescind his degree. They just put a note in, of course, the ledger when you open up, when you read the dissertation, saying that there was an issue of plagiarism. So very quickly, when you go on to this Ohio link, right? This is the Ohio University's network. And you could click on the ORCID identifier. So I'm going to share my screen once again so you all can see this. Right, my name comes up, and it shows all the institutions that I attended, education and qualifications. Right, so once again, we're dealing with individuals who are being extremely disingenuous. Right, if someone has gone to school, it's extremely easy to verify if they attended an institution and if they finished. Yeah. Like I said, that took what, 5 seconds, brother LMA? 5 seconds to verify if I had a PhD and if I completed my dissertation. Yeah. So, brother LMA, go right ahead.
Dr. Lumumba, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, man. Great topic. Yeah, I do think I'm kind of, how can I put it? I think there's a silver lining in this era. Now that we have the internet and, the extension of the internet, we have social media. So it's almost like a double-edged sword, right? So I do think that this can be a good thing in a sense, not that she's scamming people, but the fact that she's being corrected in real time, because the three of us on this, on this panel right now, we're old enough to remember, there were plenty of scammers back in the day, but they could just scam and just get away with it, and there was just no recourse. You may be, let's say, I teleport you back to 1995, Dr. Lumumba, someone says something crazy, you may be able to know that it's bullshit, but you're just one person. And so you would have to go to the local, local TV station, the local whatever, just to say, hey, what this person's saying is wrong. Then they got to take you seriously. And then you got to, find a time slot. And so then, you go through all that work, you get on, you're able to get on broadcast and, to state, hey, what this person said was wrong. And maybe 10 people hear about it. And then if they hear about it, they may forget about it by the next week. You know what I'm saying? But now in this era where, you say something off the wall, there are literally millions of credentialed people who can call you out on it. And this is what what needs to happen. And I'm glad to see it. And I'm hoping that all of the people that saw this, I think what needs to happen is not only does she need to be, not just her, but all of them. You know what I'm saying? She's the avatar because she's the the person of the moment, but all of them need to be put on blast. Two, we need to show the public what the correct way. Dr. Mark Lamont Hill on his podcast had Dr. Rachel Martin on his podcast. I don't know if you saw that one.
I follow her, absolutely. I didn't see it, but I'm going to reach out to her as well.
So basically, I want to say, I ain't gonna say she was the first one, but she was the first one that I saw that really took her to task. She said, I am a PhD, I am a licensed, blah, blah, blah. And she went through, because, we're laymen, right? You may be smart, we all may be, professionals in our individual, sector,
field,
but we don't know much about the ins and outs of therapy, right? So when she says, and two, not in defense of the Breakfast Club, but being empathetic with them, they may not know what questions to ask, right? And so if you're, coming to me as a professional, as an expert, then who am I to, I don't know anything, so I don't even know what questions to ask, right? So if you say it, then I'm just going to roll with it. But it's on them because they need to do better due diligence. But in this era, now that because like I said, back in the 90s and the 80s, yeah, you could get away with shit like that. You know what I'm saying? But you can't get away with it now. You know what I'm saying? Because you're going to have a lot of people. Go ahead.
And if I could, we see this grift taking place not just in so-called academic circles or conscious spaces or providing therapeutic services. I've seen a number of news stories on individuals posing as dentists and installing veneers.
Yep, veneer techs.
They didn't go to medical school. They didn't go to dentistry school. They rented an office, right, and act like they were installing veneers in people's mouths, charging $8,000, $10,000, $12,000, and then all come to find out the person goes home and it falls out their teeth, falls out their gums.
Yep.
So we're talking about actual harm that's being done, because now you got to go to see a real dentist, and we all know it costs money to see a dentist, because I went to a dentist about 2 months ago. I had to get some fillings done, right? But now they have to repair the damage that was done.
Yep.
And everybody know what it's like being in a dentist chair. We see it on the movies, on television. I was the same way, right? This is a real issue. Harm is being done. Imagine the distress that someone may have for actually going to see a therapist.
Yeah.
Right? When you have someone blowing the lines between what now she calls herself as a lifestyle guru and providing actual mental health care. Mental health is a major issue. I've seen a therapist before. This is why I'm Dr. Lumumba and not inmate number. Right? Imagine if I actually met with someone. My therapist was a Black woman who was an actual grifter.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So we have to address these issues.
But like I said,
what happened? I'm sorry, brother. Just very quickly. What happens is, because the person looks like us, we get willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. We can't do that anymore. You do not get a benefit of the doubt. You need to be able to substantiate and verify who you are, and your credentials. You need to, and we're going to have to fact check you on everything you say, because people are out here talking a good game, making a whole. And I'm gonna shut up after this. When I was still an undergraduate student, Barbara O, she was an actress. She actually worked with Iyanla Vanzant in the late 70s, early 80s. I knew her personally as Mama O, because she was from the Dayton, Ohio. She passed away 2 years ago. And I told her, she said, well, Bakari, Black studies is, you're really into your studies. You're doing very well. You're making dean's list every year. Have you ever thought about public speaking? And I said, well, yeah, but I don't want to be charging people money. And she said, that's poverty thinking. She said, you know how many people get paid to say things that lack any substance whatsoever? I said, damn, I didn't think about that. So now you got to get that money on to get the job done, Yon. The thing with Sister Bryant, and I'm going to wrap this up and, of course, bring it to the floor. And, of course, if you're watching on Twitter, family, make sure you follow me, hit the follow button. What we find is she used what she got to get what she wanted. That's just the reality. And I would argue, more than anything, she had the gift, the gab, the glance, right, the stance, but she weaponized her beauty. And I remember when the first time I heard of her, she was on Cam Newton's show. First thing that stood out is what she was wearing. I ain't mad at her. You know what I'm saying? I ain't mad at her. But that's the first thing that stood out. And so what happened was, most people overlooked what she was saying and focused on the aesthetic. This sister could wear a dress, right? And I remember Brother Bequilon, Brother Dwayne, and I think even Brother Jabril, we had a offline colloquy about her. They said, Brother Lumumba, did you know that she said she majored in Pan-African studies? I said, man, get the French toast out of here. I'm on my computer, comes up, boom. I sent the email that evening, request to interview. She never responded back. Because I said, well, if you had this educational background, why are you making the claims that you're making? And many people may argue, well, that was a bachelor's degree, an alleged bachelor's degree. But the issue is, Black studies is extremely, extremely reading, as a high level, is a large concentration in reading, right? So you have to read large amounts of literature, even when you're undergraduate. It prepares you for graduate school, but it's reading intensive, right? So I'm like, if it's reading intensive and you went to a reputable institution, you know the things that you're saying are absolutely nonsense. But that's neither melanated Haitian millennial. Appreciate you, brother. Make sure you hit that subscribe and like button. Donate, donate, donate. So I said this is a problem. But I agree with the sisters in the article. Part of this is the rampant anti-intellectualism. Yeah. And if you're watching on Twitter, family, I put the link to, of course, the conversation in the comments on Twitter. Slide in, be part of the conversation. Brother LMA, you're still dribbling down in VA. Talk to your boy.
Yeah. Well, like I said, now that we have, like I said, we have the social media. So like I said, it's a double-edged sword. So the media that's used to inflict this scam is going to be the same media we use to expose it. So now that she's getting drugged, because I haven't, now she, like, think about it. Like I said, back in the 90s, if you were scamming somebody, you may get, if you're lucky, if the scam would have to be big enough so that it would make it to, like, the nightly news or whatever, right?
Yes. Right. Bernie Madoff situation.
Exactly. But for like little, because like I said, she's small. She's just, it's big to us. Her audience is big to us because we're the Black community. But in terms of like nationwide, her reach is small. You know what I'm saying? So if this was in the 90s, she would have been able to get away with this for, decades. But now,
yeah. And I give you an example of a 80s, 90s, early 2000 grift. You ready?
Who?
Dr. CB.
Oh yeah. I'm getting ready to say him. Yeah. He got away with it. Oh yeah.
Never went to medical school. In fact, the man never went to college in any way, shape, or form. Never even attended a community college. Some people call it junior college. Yep. Never did one semester of post-secondary coursework. But he calls himself a doctor, right?
Oh yeah.
The second issue, and people say, well, the federal government trying to lock you up, and he won the case. Said,
no, he didn't.
He did. I said, I know, because I read the transcript. I actually read the article in the New York Times. He was charged. He was accused of practicing medicine without a license. And he actually opened a clinic in Brooklyn.
Yep.
So you know where I'm going with this. The issue was what? To practice medicine, that means you diagnose and prescribe treatment. Am I right or wrong, brother LMA?
Yep.
He wasn't doing that. People were coming in under the auspices that this man is an actual doctor. I have a real ailment, and all he would do is say, you need to change your diet. He would do a pseudo exam, but he wouldn't diagnose and say, well, you need to change your diet and then you'll feel better. This man was a charlatan. Yep. And we had people on my platform defending this clown. This is another example, Mr. Sandman, in real time, observable reality of how gullible our community is. And how disrespectful that is to the brothers and sisters who I know who racked up hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans to go to medical school, right? You got to go to undergrad for 4 years, doing probably premarital biology. Then you go to medical school. That's another 3 or 4 years. Then you go do your residency, which is another 2 or 3 years before you actually get to that real money on it. We have to be better on a macro level as a people. Mr. Sandman, 215.
Yeah, I was just going to say that professionally, I do this thing called metrology. And I've been in the metrology business for a long time. And metrology is the study of measurement. And in my business, we have to substantiate or back up all of our claims when we claim something has passed or failed to meet the specifications outlined. And it's this thing called this pyramid of traceability. And that's like, science. And, people like yourselves that have to, that force, people who claim to be, in these medical fields, that they back up what they claim. And but it's an exhaustive practice every day, having to find the resources and the citations that will back up each and every claim that you make along the way.
Well,
but there's this one thing.
Actually, I would argue
This
it's
is
not because you're supposed to learn all that information when you're in school.
right. And then, but the information has a tendency to migrate or evolve into new findings as new studies have been done as well,
Hmm.
and that's part of the process as well.
Yes.
And this is one thing though that we tend to disregard or forget. This thing called confirmation bias, where all of us, all human beings have a tendency to uh, migrate to what they already believe in. So if you claim to be a person who has these credentials and you say the things that people want to hear, it's a tendency, it's human nature for people to just agree or
Right.
disagree with certain aspects based on confirmation bias. We're all guilty of this. So when
This is
we
very
say
true.
that black people um, are are anti-intellectual or have a tendency to believe in certain things based on certain manipulation tactics that a doctor or a person like this Cheyenne person is doing. Well, a lot of us as black people in the black community have been socialized into these certain confirmation biases based on what we have encountered in our environment.
Right. And so, if I can interject, for the sake of argument, I agree with you. But this is why it's important that we hold people accountable and we fact check them, right? Because if we know our community, people in our community have been socialized to engage in confirmation bias, the grifters know that as well, and they use that to their advantage, right? And so that's why it's important. Another thing that I argue in terms of a red flag if someone's a grifter and they're posing as a particular um, posing as something that they actually aren't is when they don't have conversations with individuals, professionals in their suspected field of endeavor. So if I claim that I'm a medical doctor, but I never am in conversation, particularly publicly, with individuals in the medical field, why? Because I know I will be exposed, right? If I'm claiming that I'm a PhD and I have a PhD in higher education student affairs with a concentration in Africana perspectives, but I'm never in conversation with individuals who have a working knowledge of African and African American, African diaspora history and culture, that's a red flag, right? I'm claiming to be a PhD, but I'm never in conversation with my actual peers, right? That's a red flag, right? Somebody on my platform said, "Hey, Bakari, brother Lumumba, Dr. Lumumba, whatever the term was I was going by at the time, said, hey, we would like for you to have more conversations with your peers." And what did I do? I obliged because what? I'm going to be able to hold my own. The second issue is I'm not afraid of being exposed or fact checked because what? I know what I'm talking about. That is a red flag. When individuals are grifting, they typically never engage in conversation with their alleged industry-based peers. LMA, what do you say to that?
No, I was just getting ready to talk about just like solutions, which not solutions, but like I guess solutions, and then where we can, where we can further put the blame, because obviously, a lot of blame goes to Cheyenne Bryant and her ilk for, deceiving the public the way that she is. But then I was thinking to myself, like, then the secondary is going to be these podcasts, so Joe Budden, the Breakfast Club is like the Breakfast Club is the worst. There was one guy said it best. He says, if I hear anybody that go, 90% of the time, if you go on the Breakfast Club, I'm just going to close my wallet. And he said, anytime you see somebody on the Breakfast Club and they're asking you for money, hide your wallet. Because, in about 6 months, you're going to find out that person was a complete fraud. And it does suck. But I was thinking that, one thing about like I said, this era, the era of the podcast, I think that the credentialed, licensed, educated, cohorts of our community are going to have to fight fire with fire.
Yeah.
The real's going to have to get into these podcast space so that this stuff can be caught early. I think about
can I speak to that very quickly,
yes,
brother?
please.
So I've tried, and many of you are aware of this. I've tried to get into the podcast space, and I haven't gotten any help, particularly after my brief sojourn on the No Fugazi podcast.
Yeah.
Right. When I had that brief that, I was on there about 10, 15 minutes, and I debunked every claim they had made when they were talking about, women and voting and African history and why we were colonized, etc. It's going to be a problem. Right.
Yeah.
So I've actually reached out to an actual publicist, right? Where I'm looking at, I actually paying this individual to get me into those spaces, so that so people actually have access to factual information, not misinformation.
Yeah. But I think that's going to be the battle, because I think that like I said, the credential, the certified, the educated, they're going to have to flood the zone, and basically, and that's one thing I do like about this era, because now it is like, scammers don't have, carte blanche to just say whatever they want to say. They're going to get checked. And eventually, now that we have like the, almost like, what's it called? And I don't want to, I'm not trying to, well, the guy has, pretty good following. I think about like people like CoffeeZilla. I think about people like JT the Pocket Watcher. Or Pocket Watcher with JT. Like, you have people who have
brilliant, brother.
Yeah, you have people now who are like sharks in the water. They are looking for scammers, and these people, and once you get caught, like, it becomes a scandal. So now, it's like, almost like a double-edged sword, but it's something that we can use to our advantage. We have, I ain't gonna say black people. I think all people may have a little bit of a overactive taste for drama. You know what I'm saying? But this is good drama, because once she was scamming people and she got caught. Yeah, that's drama, but now we're informed. She's exposed, and now hopefully the populace is a little bit smarter to realize, okay, these are this is what I need to look out for. And so I think this is a good thing. I think this, obviously I don't want people to get scammed, but it's better to have that person get scammed and get caught, because she's been caught. I would say she got caught relatively early, because there was a lot of people who got away with, even in the modern era. I'm thinking about, you think about all these clowns in the manosphere, they got away with the bullshit for a long time. But now I think that people are getting called out a lot quicker. And like I said, now we're seeing these, kind of like peer, how can I put it? Peer debates on a more public platform, right? So now, before, when if let's say, two academics got into it, it didn't, agree with one another, that would be a battle that they would have in academia, which, you can, say
it happens all the time.
What's that?
Which happens all the time.
Yeah, but I was saying, when they disagree, it's almost like in the background, but now like it's in the public. So now the public can actually see both sides, and then they can come away with hopefully being informed. And well, another thing I was thinking about was that, there's going to be some people who catch on late, right? Like for me, after seeing, Cheyenne, whatever her name is, she gets caught. So now that's another thing. It's almost like a vaccine or whatever. Like, once I get a little bit, so now the next Cheyenne is going to have a lot harder time getting over on the public, because now she made the block hot. So now next time someone comes along, we're going to be, like you said. So I think I'm glad that it yes, sad that it happened, but I'm glad it happened in this era, because I think that the era of scammers coming through is coming to a close, because we've seen a lot of, like I said, a lot of stuff is coming to light. You think about all the clowns in the black manosphere that were, not scamming, but like now they're, like, you think about the Fresh and Fits, you think about there's a couple other guys that were just spewing nonsense, and now that you know, like I said, you have credentialed, educated folks who actually have degrees are coming in and checking them. And I think that, you know, this is going to, we're not going to get all of them, but we're definitely going to make the block high, and it's not going to be as easy in the future, I think.
And
Well,
also, I would like to add that the crux of the situation is the ROI, the return on investment. And you guys mentioned, or Dr. Lumumba mentioned this at the beginning of the program, was that, you know, you guys with the credentials, you have invested a lot of time and money into obtaining your credentials, and you don't give out your knowledge for free, so to speak. And a medium like a YouTube will allow you to be compensated for your knowledge. However, if you want to have a conglomerate of other credentialed, you know, professionals, they would also expect to be compensated for the information that they disseminate to the public as well. So I think that's the crux of the situation. Whereas though, what benefit is it for you know, Albert Einstein to give all of his information to the public about EMC squared if he isn't going to be compensated for,
right.
you know, his findings?
Well, but and I do understand that, but I would argue these grifters are being compensated as well, handsomely compensated. But my major issue is the harm that's being done. Right? You believe that you're in need of mental health, right? Help. You go to a pseudo therapist, right? You need a new grill. This person actually doesn't know how to install veneers, right? You want to learn about, you have a medical issue. This guy calls himself Dr. CB, but he's not a doctor at all. He's never even been to any college whatsoever. Like, so my issue, number one, is the harm that's being done, right? People are always going to, you know, dismiss academics, people with credentials for whatever reason, whatever. But the harm that's being done to people who actually need the help is, I think, extremely problematic. And we have to be honest, these are individuals who are preying on Black people, right? Now, if these were non-Black individuals who were preying on Black people, we would call them anti-Black racists, right? And so I think that you can make the same argument here, that these individuals are actually have a hatred of Black people, because if they actually loved Black people, they would actually be doing what they're doing. What they're doing would be above board. There'd be no need to try to swindle and finagle and mislead individuals that you say you love and care about.
Yeah, their education pimps and prostitutes, and the people on YouTube that buy into this prostitution ring are their tricks.
Yes,
So they're pimping it. And pimping ain't easy.
The doc squad. She said for her fans, she has a doc squad, etc. Right? Yeah, just a stream. And I mean, and the other issue was, you know, even DJ Envy. He went to college. He knows that what the claims she made wasn't true. That if the school closes, you can't get your transcript after 2 years. It's absolutely nonsensical. Brother LMA, I see you unmuted yourself.
Oh no, I was going to say that. Well, I didn't know what school Envy went to, but he's probably seeing as he had his issues with what's his name what's it called, the house flipper, you know what I'm saying? He ain't probably paid too much attention when he was in college anyway. But yeah.
Got you. Once again, family, if you're watching, make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Hit the notification bell as well. You're watching LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black Power initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black, in conjunction, once again, with Bequaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African-centered news and information. Just a quick update for you all, family. We actually are working on an online store. We're working on an online store. So we hope, due diligence, we can have that up and running by Saturday. So we're going to have some merch for you all. We got some drip coming too, right? So we're definitely looking to be African-centered. We're going to have some Boys Cayman Haitian Revolution bomber jackets, right? We're looking to have some Battle of Ottawa bomber jackets. So we're really leaning all the way in the concept of being unapologetically African, and of course promoting and of course repping our victories against anti-Black racism. So make sure that you all are on the lookout for the Lumumba Speaks merch online store. And we just really giving thanks, because, you know, when I started this platform, I didn't know what I was really doing, right? And the more I went on, the more people supported. And really, I think, I would have to argue the reason why there's still a actual platform we have is because of the brothers and sisters in the community who actually support the platform. So definitely want to give a big thanks there. So we're gonna get ready to wrap things up. To give brother Mr. Sandman and brother LMA final thoughts, but also if you're watching on Twitter, you can tap in. The link is in the comments on Twitter, but definitely, or X. I'm sorry, it's X now. But definitely want to hear from you all before we close out and regarding why we must expose grifters like Cheyenne Bryant. So let me ask you all this question: is there a care concern regarding what Cheyenne Bryant does next?
Say that one more time.
Is there a care concern in terms of what is her next career move?
Well, I think after this, I mean, she's probably gonna be. Well, I don't want to.
I mean, we would hope she would be persona non grata, but we know our people.
I mean, like I said, she's gonna be. I think she's gonna be in the crowd of people who are like her. So I think that she's gonna be persona non grata in polite society, like people with sense. And there's that saying, you're not gonna be able to save everybody. And right. She's just gonna be over there in that camp. Like there's some folks, unfortunately there's gonna be some black folk that just don't get it, too far gone. And don't get me wrong, I think that, like I said, I think it was Michelle Alexander, she was talking about how white supremacy, they do something worse than kill people. They actually inflict poverty on you. And that poverty will just completely wreck your psyche, your ability to think. There's been studies on. I saw there was a thing I remember seeing on NPR where they talked about how your IQ or your cognitive abilities drop. Like, they see it dropping like when you're on the lower end of the social economic scale. But they were saying that there was a community, I think in India, right? And they were able to see that when they had droughts, like their IQ would drop. And then when they had more food or whatever. So it kind of goes into that whole, because we've been deprived for so long that, and like I said, we had that No Child Left Behind, a lot of our critical thinking has been impaired. And so there's some folks that they're just going to have to get hit upside the head a couple more times, more times than the rest of us to get it. So hopefully, they better make it. But yeah, I would say
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I want to say my final words is just be careful who you listen to and just do your due diligence. Look up their credentials and, put them to the test because we have a lot of grifters out there. She won't be the last one, but I'm hoping that she will be the next ones are going to get checked a lot quicker.
Absolutely. So, and Max 768 says she'll probably go into the reality show circuit. I can actually see that. Yeah, I think she actually already has that look, and I think she comports herself in that manner. Sometimes, right? I mean, we've seen on some platforms, some people call her the ratchet therapist because she just sometimes would make rather vulgar comments about, people having sexual relations. So that's something that is possible. She'll be paid, I tell you that much. Brother Mr. K says also they will character assassinate you, which in some ways is worse than physical assassination. So this is an issue, but we have to call these individuals out. Once again, I appreciate everyone for supporting the platform once again. But we have to, because these are individuals who do substantial harm. Once again, I say to Dr. Sebi, if you actually are in need of real medical care and you go to this clown, of course, we know he's deceased. I'm not gonna call him an ancestor because if you're doing harm to black people while you're alive, you should not be venerated and lionized when you transition. Then that exacerbates the issue, right? Because the time when you was going seeing this fool, this grifter, you could have been actually receiving real medical care to care for whatever issues, medical ailments you had. But we see the same with Cheyenne Bryant. This is someone who, of course, if someone has real mental health issues and they're wasting their time seeing her, they could have been seeing the Sister Rachel Martin or, of course, Sister Monica Thomas, right? And so this is something, same with Tariq Nasheed. You actually want to learn real black history, but instead of picking up a book, you're watching these bullshit-ass DVDs. Right, so these are issues that we have to face, and as I've stated, of course, ad nauseum on my platform, the enemies of African people at home and abroad are internal and external. Mr. Sandman, we're gonna let you close things out. What say you?
Yeah, I'm gonna remain open-minded. I'm glad that you made me aware of some of the grifting and the false allegations that made by this lady. I've watched a couple of her interviews, and she does sound charismatic and
Mhm.
articulate. So my assumption is that she does have some modicum of education. The level of it, I'm not so sure about it. And I also like to relate situations like this, in particular, if we're talking about credentialed and uncredentialed people, is we can look back on our history and say that a guy like a Dr. Martin Luther King was credentialed, and a guy like Malcolm X was not credentialed, yet he
Right.
was just as impactful. So
Right.
just
But and the
something
thing
to
was,
think about.
Malcolm was Malcolm wasn't trying to finagle us.
Right, right. That's also
Like
true
he
as
never
well.
claimed to be something or have something that he didn't.
Right, that's absolutely true.
Yes.
Yep.
So something to consider. All right, family. Y'all know what to do. Until next time, always bet on black. Peace. Before you go, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you for supporting the channel. And remember, here at Lumumba Speaks, we always bet on black. Peace.